Welcome to Plan9Crunch. My name is Doug Gibson, and we are reading Irish folk tales for Plan9Crunch Read of the Week. My daughter and her husband were in Ireland. They picked up this book. It's a fascinating read. It's really enjoying it. And the first story is called The Legend of Abhartach, the Irish Vampire. And it's fascinating to read about vampires in Ireland and the legends they have. Let me read a little bit from this book. Legend says that in the 5th century there was a poet who had a son whom he called Abhartach. That was a nickname for a dwarf because that's what the child was. And it comes from the Irish Abhartach. But wouldn't you think that the son of a poet would be a kind and gentle creature? Well, you'd be wrong about this one. For he was a brutal warlord who lived in a hill fort. And from there he went out to petrify his people. So evil was he that his terrified subjects got rid of him. But sure, didn't he come back to wreak havoc and vengeance among them? Some say that he was a wizard, a magician, and a villain. But he was more than that. For although he was dwarfish in stature, it didn't stop him from being one of the most cruel kings ever encountered in this land. People were scared witless of meeting this strange wee man on the road or in the fields. For being a magician, he could turn himself into any sort of an animal and could even become invisible if he had a mind to. Many a one, hearing a strange noise, turned around and found he'd appeared out of nowhere. And he didn't hesitate to beat the life out of anyone who got in his way. Even after death, no corpse was safe, because it was rumored that he sucked the blood out of his victims and flung their bodies over his shoulder and fed them to the wolves, his only friends. People tried to give him a wide berth as he ran amok around the countryside on his vengeful rampage, usually under the cover of darkness. But eventually everyone meets their match, and that match was a neighboring chieftain by the name of Caithan, who was persuaded to do the deed for them. They wanted him to kill and bury Abhartach to rid their countryside of his evil presence. Caithan considered himself strong enough and fit enough to slay Abhartach, and he was fed up with the stories of the blood-sucking dwarf and the tales of his active cruelty on the innocent people of Slagtaverte and the district about there. Caithan was smart as well as strong, and he found out the place where this monster had his den. One night, when the moon was hidden behind the clouds, Caithan made his way to the covered ditch where Abhartach lay asleep. The ground was peaty and covered with thick moss, so the approach of the big man was as silent as the grave. He drew his iron sword, and when he saw the mound of earth move, he lifted his weapon high and struck the mound with the full force of his body behind the blow. A horrific scream echoed over the hillside, and at that moment the moon emerged from behind the clouds. Now, I'm not going to read any more because I want you guys to get this book. And we'll have a link to it. Irish folktales are wonderful. And they're good to read on a long winter's night, maybe, or I guess spring and summer now, and just lose yourself in these legends. Thank you for listening to this book, and thank you for watching Plan9Crunch. We'll have a read every week for you, and you can subscribe to us, Plan9Crunch at YouTube. Also subscribe at TikTok, and you can like or follow us at Plan9Crunch Podcast and Blog on Facebook. And we have a blog ourselves. We started it in 2008, Steve Stones and I, and Joe Gibson also participates now. It's Plan9Crunch.com, and thank you very much, and that's a wrap.